This is Help Wanted, the show that makes your work work for you. I'm Jason Pfeiffer, editor-in-chief of Entrepreneur Magazine.
And I'm money expert Nicole Lappin. On Tuesdays, Jason and I answer the helpline and help callers solve their work problems.
And on Thursdays, I give you one way to improve your work and build a career or company you love.
And it starts now.
You have been rejected. And I know that because you are a human being, and human beings don't get everything that they want, which means that sometimes, maybe even today, you have been rejected. And it feels personal, doesn't it? It feels like a personal assault. Now, let me tell you something very important. It is not. I tell someone no maybe 50 times a day, and I am never actually rejecting that person. In fact, I'm never even rejecting their idea. Instead, when people ask me for something, I am asking myself one vital question. And it is the same question that anyone asks before accepting or rejecting anything. The question is this: does this further my goals? Once you understand this question, you will have a far better strategy for handling rejections and an important way to move forward. And to appreciate why, I am going to first tell you about a friend who everyone rejected. It's my friend John. John, pseudonym. I'm hiding who John is, but John spent years writing a book, and then dozens of publishers rejected that book. And John and I got coffee and we're talking about it recently. And he said to me, you know, maybe they're right. Maybe my book just sucks. And I said, that's not true. I asked John to imagine this situation, the rejection, from the publisher's point of view, from the point of view of the person who has rejected him. Let's imagine it. So, okay, the publisher received his manuscript along with, I don't know, dozens, hundreds of others. And now some editor's job is to go through all of them and then try to decide which ones to acquire, to publish. All right, I said to John, what is that editor thinking? And John replied, well, they're thinking which of these books is the best. Ah, that is our great error. That is not what they're thinking. So what are they thinking? Well, consider this. When something is ours, when we make it, we obsess over its quality. We want to know whether we measure up to some abstract ideal of best or good or great. But when other people make decisions about the things that we create, they can't deal in abstractions. They have to deal in specifics. And that's why they ask themselves the question that I shared just a moment ago. Again, that question is, does this further my goals? That's it. That's all they want to know. They're not asking if something is good or worthy. They're not passing judgment on it. They're not thinking about you or your skills or how hard you worked. They are simply looking at their goals and then looking at what you sent them and seeing if there's a match. And what are their goals? Well, that depends on who you're pitching. By way of example, I'll just speak for myself. Dozens of publicists and entrepreneurs every day pitch me their stories because they're hoping to get coverage in Entrepreneur Magazine, where I am editor-in-chief. And I reject almost everybody. And when I do, somebody inevitably will reply and they'll say, but this company is very successful. As if to say, I have rejected a good story, a good company. And I agree. I'm saying no to very successful people, very impressive companies, smart people, great leaders, billionaires. Truly, I have rejected so many billionaires. It is crazy. What a weird flex. I'm rejecting billionaires, but I am. You know why? Because success stories, quote unquote, success stories do not further my goals. That's it. Remember, does this further my goals? Success stories, this company is very successful, doesn't further my goals. So what does further my goals? Well, for me, from my very particular situation, it's this. My goal at the magazine is to help my readers build things. And that means that I need, well, not success stories. Success stories don't help somebody build something. I want problem-solving stories, which is to say stories of people fixing things and stories of people doing something, executing some kind of growth strategy that reveals useful, surprising, often counterintuitive information. And I am not pitched those stories, those really insidery, granular, here's a smart, risky decision we made and how it played out and why it mattered. I'm not pitched those very often. When I am rejecting someone, to be very clear, I am not telling them that they are unsuccessful or unworthy. I am not saying any of that. All I'm saying is that they don't fit my narrow goals, that very specific problem-solving story thing that I'm looking for. Just doesn't fit that. And this is true everywhere. Bosses reject great ideas because they don't match the company's needs. Investors reject great businesses because they don't match their theses. I know. This might be helpful in context, I guess. Like, oh, okay, well, I guess I'm not getting rejected. It's not personal. But it doesn't exactly cure the sting of rejection. So let's solve that next. Here's what to do when you are rejected. First, let's set up a scenario. You worked hard on something, you pitched it to someone, and then they said no, and it hurt. What do you do next? It's simple. You need to ask yourself a version of this question that I have been asking all along, right? I've been saying that your rejector, or in some cases me, asking this question, which is, does this further my goals? All right, so what is the version of that for you? They asked, does this further my goals? You just pitched to them and they said no. Now you ask yourself this, what else furthers my goal? Yes, your goal. Listener, your goal. This whole time we've been talking about their goal. They were the ones with the power to accept or reject, which meant that you were just obsessed with what they wanted. But they are not the only person in this equation. You have goals too, and those goals cannot be squashed because of one or two or even a bazillion rejections. To move forward, you just need to recognize what your actual goal is. For example, let's go back to my friend John. I asked John, why did you want to write a book in the first place? Like, what was your actual goal? Was it to write a book? And John thought for a moment, and then he said, no, actually, funny enough, his goal was not to write a book. His goal was to get his ideas into the world, and he thought a book was a good way to do that. Well, I said, what's another way to do that? And for the first time in our conversation, John lit up. We started brainstorming new ideas, a newsletter, a podcast, partnerships with like-minded organizations. There were so many ways to get his ideas out into the world. He seemed happier and lighter about this because for the first time in a while, he felt in control. We were talking about things he could do. When you are rejected, you are being acted upon. Someone else is in control, making decisions for you, but that is not the end. You still have goals, and you still have ways to pursue and achieve those goals, and it all starts by recognizing the power that you still have. Maybe your goal will be achieved in a different way. Maybe it'll take more time or more energy or require a pathway that you didn't expect, but that is fine because the greatest goals are not fulfilled easily. Someone said no. All right, you still get to say yes. And if you liked that, well, I've got a newsletter for you. Each week here on Help Wanted, I read something from my newsletter, as I just did. My newsletter is called One Thing Better. Each week, one way to be more successful and satisfied and build a career or company that you love. You can find it by going to onethingbetter.email. That's a web address. Just plug it into a browser. onethingbetter.email. I read them here, so stay tuned to Help Wanted, where you can hear them audibly. But if you want to get them a few weeks early, along with all sorts of other fun stuff that I send out, then subscribe to that newsletter, onethingbetter.email. And if you say no, if you reject me, well, that's okay. I'll find another way to further my goals. Help Wanted is a production of Money News Network. Help Wanted is hosted by me, Jason Pfeiffer.
And me, Nicole Lappin. Our executive producer is Morgan Lavoie. Do you want some help? Email our helpline at helpwanted@moneynewsnetwork.com for the chance to have some of your questions answered on the show. And follow us on Instagram at Money News and TikTok at Money News Network for exclusive content and to see our beautiful faces. Maybe a little dance.
Oh, I didn't sign up for that.
All right, well, talk to you soon.